Like no man before him, Ayrton Senna has emblazoned his name on the Formula One World Driving Championship. At the wheel of his McLaren Honda, Senna has been perfect thus far in 1991. At the U.S. Grand Prix in Phoenix, Arizona, Senna took the pole and led from flag to flag. In round two, in his hometown of Sao Paulo, Brazil, Senna triumphed again from the pole, despite losing the gearbox in his McLaren in the final 10 laps. In round three at Imola, Italy, Senna passed Riccardo Patrese Williams on lap 12, and despite a flashing engine warning light, stayed there to the checkered flag. The streets of Monte Carlo have always been Senna's personal stage. His third straight win in the Principality made Senna the first driver to open a season with 4 straight victories. Today, he hopes to add his 5th in North America. One of the most beautiful and unusual circuits in all of motorsports sits on an island in the mighty St. Lawrence River off the city of Montreal. And today is the site of round 5 of the Formula One World Driving Championship, the Grand Prix of Canada. Like most of North America, on this first weekend in June, Montreal is enjoying midsummer weather. We have warm temperatures and a stiff breeze blowing at the drivers' backs, helping to push the cars to more than 175 miles an hour at the start-finish line. Hello once again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. Bienvenue to Montreal. This city made athletic headlines back in 1976 when Romanian gymnast Nadia Comaneci scored the first perfect 10 in Olympic gymnastics competition not far away in Olympic Park here in Montreal. This weekend, perfection is very much on the mind of Formula One fans as Ayrton Senna goes for his 5th win in as many races this year. Can he do it? Well, the early signs are not good. And for more on that, we turn to ESPN Grand Prix analyst David Hobbs. David, not been a good weekend thus far for Mr. Senna.
Well, Bob, for the first time this year, he has not got the pole. In fact, for the first time since Hungary last year, he's not even on the front row. The whole front row has been annexed by the Williams-Renault team. And on the pole for the 4th time in his career is Riccardo Patrese, who once again in 1991 outshone the star of the team, Nigel Mansell. However, today has not got off to a good start for Riccardo because he didn't turn a wheel in this morning's warm-up due to the fact that he had a problem with his car. They couldn't find out what it was. And as Nigel Mansell is the absolute undisputed #1 in the team, he wasn't allowed access to the spare car. This is a difficult circuit to set the car up for, and it's also very unforgiving, as Derek Warwick found out a few years ago. Well, as a result of that incident and some other incidents that happened since then, last fall they decided to repave and reset the circuit. And with more on that is John Bisignano actually down on the circuit.
Thank you very much, David. Well, our good friend Derek Warwick certainly proved how tricky of a corner this used to be. Over the winter, the Canadian organizers have tried to make many improvements to the circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and one of them is to make this corner into a very wide chicane using 2 90-degree bends. They've also resurfaced the entire track, trying to get rid of many of the bumps that played havoc with the teams here for many years. They got most of them, except for one very big one over my shoulder, where the drivers have to avoid a huge bump at some 180 miles an hour. The manhole covers that were all around the circuit have either been covered over or bolted down. I think the circuit Gilles Villeneuve on the Ile Notre Dame is going to host the most competitive Formula One race in the 1991 season.
Thank you, John. That corner is also right at the pit entrance, and it should be exciting all day long. The 26 cars are on the starting grid, ready to fire engines. Let's take a look at the way they line up on our brute starting grid. On the pole, as David said, his 4th pole in a record 213 career starts, Riccardo Patrese of Italy in the Williams-Renault, 0.6 of a second under the record lap despite a vicious Friday crash. Next to him, teammate Nigel Mansell of Great Britain, also under the old lap record, and Mansell fastest in the morning warm-up. Williams looks really strong here in Montreal. On row 2, Ayrton Senna of Brazil in the McLaren Honda. His pole string stops at 7. He too under his own old course record. Next to him, Alain Prost of France in the Ferrari, the all-time leader in Formula One victories with 44, but he has never won here in Canada. On row 3 will be Roberto Moreno, a surprise. The Brazilian in the Benetton Ford, his best qualifying position ever, and the highest-ranking Pirelli tired cars, all the others on Goodyear. Next to him, Gerhard Berger of Austria, still looking for his first victory in the McLaren Honda. On row 4 will be Jean Alesi of France in a troubled Ferrari after a fire in the warm-up, but he is on the grid next to Nelson Piquet of Brazil in the second Benetton car. He has been outshone by teammate Roberto Moreno this weekend. On row 5 will be Stefano Modena of Italy in the Tyrrell Honda after a race 3 weeks ago in Monaco, next to Emanuele Pirro of Italy in the BMS Dallara Judd. On row 6 will be Andrea De Cesaris of Italy in the Team Jordan with V8 power as you see the cars roll off. Satoru Nakajima of Japan will be next to him in the second Tyrrell. Row 7 will be Ivan Capelli of Italy in the Leighton House with Ilmor V10 Power next to the second Jordan, Bertrand Gachot of Belgium. Row 8 will be Gianni Morbidelli of Italy in the Minardi with Ferrari Power next to Terry Boutsen of Belgium, 5th in the morning warm-up in the Ligier. Row 9, JJ Leto of Finland in the second Dallara next to the second Minardi of Italian Pierluigi Martini. Row 10, Eric Bernard of France in the Lola with Ford V8 Power next to the Brabham V12 Yamaha of Martin Brundle of Great Britain. Row 11, Michele Alboreto of Italy with the Footwork Porsche next to the second Lola Ford of Aguri Suzuki of Japan. Row 12 will be Maurizio Gugelmin of Brazil in the second Leighton House next to the Lotus of Mika Hakkinen of Finland. Row 13 will be Stefan Johansson of Sweden in the second Footwork Porsche, standing in for the injured Alex Caffey. Next to him, Eric Comas of France in the Ligier with Lamborghini Power. Those who failed to qualify, Fabrizio Barbazza in the AGS by just 3/100ths of a second. Gabriele Tarquini, his teammate, also did not qualify. The AGS team says they may quit after Mexico. Mark Blundell of Great Britain also failed to qualify when his Brabham gearbox broke, as did the Lotus Judd of Johnny Herbert, standing in for Julian Bailey with Lotus. Those who failed to pre-qualify on Friday morning, Olivier Griard in the Fondmetal Osella, the two Modena Lamborghini cars of Nicola Larini and Eric Van der Poel, and Pedro Chavez in the Coloni. David, you said it's a difficult racetrack. How about a closer look?
Well, if we go along the north side of the course, there's one section here where there's 3 chicanes and a fast corner as well. Very difficult to get a good rhythm here, but some overtaker will go on into those slower corners. Then they lead right down to the east end of the circuit to turn 10. A lot of braking and overtaking is going to go on into turn 10, but you must come off this corner very fast to go through this section here, which is absolutely flat out. And as they exit the last right-hander, they're doing about 180 miles an hour down to the chicane where we saw John earlier.
Cars are making their lap. Let's get a final update on the position of our qualifiers with John Bisignano.
Bob, we have one qualifier in the pits. He'll be starting the race from the pit road. That's Martini in the Minardi Ferrari. The story with the Williams this morning and why they didn't make that very important warm-up for Patrese was a fuel fitting. They started the car 5 times before the warm-up, but the fuel fitting gave up when it was time to go out there. This is Ricardo's first time to drive the car in absolute race trim. That's got to be exciting.
Now, Ricardo cracked his helmet in that vicious crash in Friday. Actually, Ayrton Senna blew the engine in his car. Ricardo slipped on the oil, backed the car in hard, and cracked his helmet. We have 4 in-cars in the race today. We'll be stopping in with the McLaren and Ferrari teammates as the race wears on. You're on board with Ayrton Senna, starting from the second row for the first time this year. As David mentioned, for the first time in a long time.
He's only started off the front row 6 times since the end of the 1977 season.
Alain Prost's Ferrari on board. Ferrari team in some disarray. Formula One fans know they fired their team manager, Cesare Fiorio, not long ago. He's been replaced by a triumvirate of Ferrari executives. Cars rolling onto the starting grid. When they come to a stop, we'll see a white flag from the back of the field. The light will go red, then it will go green for one of the most exciting moments in sports. 26 engines revving to as high as 15,000 RPM. Very warm day here in Montreal. The cars to the left of your screen are on the racing line. They'll get better traction off the start. The guys on the right are going to have to be very careful. They're on the dirty line. Turn it up and listen to one of the most amazing sounds anywhere. Championship. I think we got it. The drivers seem to think so. They are away.
Mansell gets around his teammate Ricardo Patrese right at the start.
Oh, one of the Ferraris Prost pushed off there by Ayrton Senna. A lot of speculation this weekend about how the 2 Williams teammates would handle that start, and apparently Nigel Mansell just went for it. It is Mansell, Patrese, Senna, Prost, and the rest of the field, as you see. Streaming out. Somebody lighting up the tires there and braking for the chicane on the back side of this racetrack. A very narrow island, the Ile de Notre Dame. The racetrack about 150 yards across from straightaway to straightaway, if you could throw a rock across it. Under the bridge. Remember the crash between Sandro Nannini's parked car and Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell a year ago in the wet?
As I said, it's also very unforgiving. As you can see, there's very little runoff area to the sides here. If you should put a wheel into that grass, which is still wet from the rain the other day, you'll be straight into the wall. Down to that turn 10. This is where we're going to see some passing as the afternoon progresses.
Senna, Prost, Berger. Looks like a Alesi coming up the inside along the Benetton.
Both Benettons are there. But come off effort and just through this fast set of sweepers here. They go faster and faster and find this left hand downhill. Tremendous speed through there, and as they exit and come up the chicane here, they get up to 189 in practice, and with that tailwind you were talking about earlier on, probably going over 190 today.
Senna, followed by the red Ferraris of Prost and Lacey, then Gerhard Berger in the red and white McLaren, then Nelson Piquet in one of the Benetton cars. There is Mansell with a good early lead, about 4 car lengths. Patrese very much a question in this race. He was having his neck worked on while the cars were sitting on the grid by a masseuse. One of the Ferraris looked like a Lacey going under Prost there. This newly resurfaced track has been something of a conundrum for these teams as they try to dial in these cars. Let's get down to the Minardi pits and John Visignano.
It's a very quick pit stop for Pirro. He's come in, they've changed all 4 tires. I can't see a problem with the car. A lot of smoke off the front brakes. But why in the world he came in? They got tires on the first lap, we'll never know. They're checking for flats, but right now everything looks absolutely with pressure.
Well, it must have been a leaking tire. No other reason that they would bring in. That was the Dallara, not the Minardi pits, of course. Here is the intra-team battle on Ferrari. Prost and Lacey.
I think that Prost is holding a Lacey up. I mean, a lot of people won't want to hear that, but I think at the moment it's one of those situations. If Lacey gets round him, I think he'll put some pressure on Senna.
Now, this is a race where we expect to see tremendous pressure on gearboxes. There's a lot of shifting with tight corners like this hairpin. Very hard on brakes, very hard on fuel consumption, particularly for the V12-powered cars, and very hard on tires as well. This is a new racing surface, and there was no opportunity to test on it prior to this race.
Alesi desperately trying to get around his teammate Alan Prost. They actually, most of these cars are changing gear about 30 times a lap, depending on the engine configuration.
Nelson Piquet in the Benetton, getting a little bit sideways under pressure. Excuse me, that's Moreno being overtaken by Piquet. And he gets around.
Somebody got very slightly. He's got a wheel on the grass there coming onto the chicane on the pit straight. One of those green cars. I'm not sure it was a Jordan or a Leighton House, actually. Prost still holding on for Lacey.
There is Ayrton Senna, presently running in 3rd position. Over a second and a half down to 2nd place, Riccardo Patrese. The Ferrari's running in lockstep. You're watching live the battle in round 5 of the Formula One World Championship. It is Nigel Mansell leading Riccardo Patrese, Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost, and Jean Alesi. We'll be right back. In the St. Lawrence River lies the Ile de Notre Dame, the island of Our Lady, site of the 1976 Olympics and home to round 5 of the Formula One World Championship. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of Canada is brought to you by Acura Automobiles. Experience precision-crafted performance. By Smooth Busch Beer and easy drinking Busch Light. And by Mobil 1 Synthetic Motor Oil. Isn't your car worth the extra protection? We are back live, and we have a huge fire, a car on fire on the backside of the racetrack. It appears to be one of the LaRousse cars. That's a Guri Suzuki, I believe. I'm afraid it's too late for that.
He wants to try and save his car. This team having a tremendous financial struggle this year, and this won't be very good for them at all. Luckily, he got out of the car. We don't know what happened to it, or...
That is a terrible fire. The fuel is outside the car. Somehow, the fuel cell must have leaked. The picture you just saw is the first time we saw it. We're getting our pictures from Canadian television. Now we're down in the pits. Gerhard Berger's been going backwards. What's going on, John Visignano?
Gerhard Berger came into the pits. The engine was revving very high. They immediately took off the engine cover, and they are trying to push the car back into the garage. You can leave the garage once you've entered, and they are going to do some serious maintenance back on the rear end of that car. Everyone is all over the engine. They're changing the electrics.
I'll recall a year ago when Gerhard Berger jumped the start, was penalized a minute, and then was far and away the fastest man on the racetrack. Completed the race in the shortest elapsed time, but only finished 4th on the track as Ayrton Senna came through to win en route to the World Championship. Tough break for Gerhard Berger.
So many rumors surrounding Gerhard Berger at the moment. He is, as he has pointed out this week, he has got a contract for 1992, but the rumors are strong and heavy here that Michael Andretti, of course, will replace Berger at McLaren.
There's the interval from Nigel Mansell in first place, back to Riccardo Patrese, then Ayrton Senna, followed closely, I believe that's still on Prost, right up there in the red Ferrari, followed by teammate Jean Alesi. Yes, it is Prost and Alesi, then Nelson Piquet, Roberto Moreno, the two Benettons nose to tail, Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell, Andre de Cesaris and Bertrand Gachon nose to tail for the Jordan team, then Ivan Capelli, Terry Boutsen, J.J. Leto, Gianni Morbidelli, Satoru Nakajima, and Eric Bernard.
Senna's gone to great trouble to point out this weekend that all those poles and wins he's had this year have not been easy, and that they have had to struggle, and some of the other teams have been their own worst enemies. And he, as I say, he's gone to a lot of trouble to point out that it's not just all that easy for them. You can never tell with him, though, how carefully he's driving to make those tyres last. Tyres are just a little bit of a question mark at this race. But it certainly looks as if he's about to be overwhelmed by Alan Prost.
They're riding with right now. The yellow flag is for the fire we saw in Aguri Suzuki's LaRouche. No sign of smoke. It would appear to be out, but the car wasn't all that far off the racetrack.
This is that far section. Round this right-hander, over this little crest, down to this left-hander. The cars bottom out here, boom, boom, under that bridge. At that point here, they're doing like 190 miles an hour onto the brakes here at the chicane where we saw John earlier.
And you're seeing the road about as well as the driver sees the road. The car is still very bumpy in spots, despite the resurfacing that we talked about. Across the start-finish line goes Alain Prost in the Ferrari.
Difficult up here in Canada, of course, with the tremendously cold winter they have, to get road surfaces. Very quick to that first complex. That's where he was right behind him last time around. From here on out, at the next little complex, he catches up a lot more. But towards that all-important turn 10, the hairpin at the far end of the circuit, from then on, Senna seems to stop a bit of things. But right here, he's under tough pressure from Alan Prost.
Watching two men, perhaps the two canniest drivers in Formula One today. Both are likely to be trying to save their cars as they run as they do now on full tanks. But right now, Senna seems to be almost holding up Alain Prost. Now he pulls away a little bit. Prost will close up under braking in the Ferrari, and Jean Alesi right there in the second red car.
It looks a long way on the onboard camera, but as you can see outside, it's not very far. In fact, not so far in front of him, 1.4 seconds in front, is Riccardo Patrese. Unfortunately, getting his first feel of that race car today. Very, very disappointing that he didn't run in the morning warm-up.
We're working lap 6 of a scheduled 69 of the green flag conditions. Prost once again closes up on Senna. Very fast part of the racetrack right here. No passing opportunities. Now you're on board with Senna. Let's see if it's any more bouncy than the Ferrari.
It certainly looks as if it is, doesn't it? There's no doubt about it that the last 2 years, the Ferraris have been absolutely excellent on high-speed, bumpy types of tracks, and the McLarens haven't been so good. This year, the McLarens seem to have got a grip of their problem and have come back into their own, obviously, with 4 wins out of 4 starts. But nevertheless, the Ferrari are making a comeback, whether it's just coincidental with their new trio at the top of the tree there, or whether it is really because they've got a grip on things we don't know. Time will tell, of course, as the season progresses. Hard to believe that a committee can run a race team as well as a proper manager.
This is about the first time this year we've seen the two reigning superstars of Formula One, Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, able to race one another. It has been all Senna thus far this year. He usually just checks out and disappears. But right now, it looks like he's having to drive as hard as he can just to hold off the 4th place Ferrari of Alain Prost. This is the 3rd on the racetrack. Up front, it's Nigel Mansell by nearly 4 seconds now over teammate Riccardo Patrese. This battle going on about 2 seconds behind Patrese.
Yeah, Nigel's got a handy 5-second lead over this group now, or 6-second lead over this group. So he is driving extremely well.
They are nose to tail. A pass attempt might not be too far away as the Ferrari closes in on the McLaren. Fast part of the racetrack, up through the gearboxes. Nothing but all horsepower and courage at this part of the racetrack. There you got to look at Riccardo Patrese. Prost takes a look up the straightaway, but it won't be this time.
When you see them swerving there, it wasn't really to break the draft. They're swerving around that bump that John was talking about earlier on. There is one bad bump on that back stretch.
Fast lap of the race turned in thus far as Nigel Mansell completes lap 8. That was Patrese going out of your picture. The Renault factory that supplies engines to the Williams team, running 1 and 2 right now, have made it clear they expect 3 or 4 victories this year, and they expect a world championship this year's or next. There you see the work continue on Gerhard Berger's car. He'll be back on the racetrack in a moment. We are back in beautiful Montreal, Canada, the Paris of North America, if you will. Sergeant Preston of the Yukon there. brings us in our title page. We hope you're enjoying live coverage of round 5 of the Formula One World Championship. Bob Varsha, David Hobbs with you. John Bizignano at his usual station on pit road. The battle for third place between 2 Ferraris and the McLaren Honda of the man in the yellow helmet, Ayrton Senna of Brazil. The best racing we've seen thus far in Formula One this year.
Really having to work for that $500,000 today for old Ayrton. He's going to put all he's got into it. Here we see him from Alan Prost's car as they go along the St. Lawrence Seaway side of the stadium here. And just behind these 2 Ferraris, old Nelson Piquet in the Ford Benetton is catching up.
Let's get down to the pits and John.
Gerhard Berger is not enjoying the Canadian Grand Prix. He was in for at least 3 or 4 laps. They changed the black box on the right-hand side of the car, and they went to the 2 front spark plugs on the left bank of that 12-cylinder engine. They cannot figure out what is wrong. When he went down the pit road, he was still misfiring heavily, and they closed the garage door on us, folks. We are back in secrecy in the McLaren pit.
Excuse me, John, right at the head of the start-finish straightaway, I believe, we have Roberto Moreno, who has looped the Benetton.
But didn't stall it. And he's getting, when it doesn't look badly damaged, it's only just on the grass. If it didn't hit that gravel, it'd probably be all right. Meanwhile, Senna has pulled out a lot. Is that Prost or no? That's Alesi. Prost must have got around Senna.
I don't see Prost. Now Prost is in the background behind, it would appear, Nelson Piquet in the Benetton.
Well, he's either got away and pulled a long way away, or he's got left behind.
Let's recap. This is Senna in 3rd place. That is Jean Alesi. That is Nelson Piquet. And here comes Alain Prost, obviously with a problem in the...
Oh, the left front tire. Left front tire.
That's Alesi's car. And there is one of the Tyrrells off in the Tuolis. That is Satoru Nakajima, I believe. Yes, it is. Nakajima's had a rough weekend. He put one into the...
oh, here we see a replay. Up on the curb. Oh, just nails the wall. Nakajima put one in the stand this morning and badly damaged his race car. This is the spare car anyway. So Nakajima will be getting a terribly effusive loss from old Ken Tyrrell.
Now look at the tires. See those dark streaks on the tires of Jean Alesi's Ferrari.
Looks like blistering of that left front to me, but of course, it's difficult for us to tell from here. They would know certainly better than we would.
Goodyear and Pirelli, the 2 reigning Formula One tire companies, have brought lots of tires here, and very soft tires. Because this is a new surface, it was expected to be fairly slippery.
Oh, smoke there from somebody. Oh, that's... I guess that's still from Nakajima there, is it?
Or somebody's barbecue on the other side of that wall. Jean Alesi will celebrate his 26th birthday in 9 days.
Ayrton Senna in 3rd spot has slipped a cool 4 seconds behind Patrese nearly now. Jean Alesi in the Ferrari under some pretty severe pressure from Nelson Piquet. Up against the wily fox there, Nelson Piquet, one of the oldest drivers in Formula One racing, and of course a 3-time world champion, so he knows how to race Grand Prix cars.
Nelson Piquet will run his 200th Formula One race this year. There is Satoru Nakajima, who has made it back to the pits in the Tyrrell.
Car doesn't look too bad, does it?
No, I thought for sure he had damaged those wheels when they went hard into the concrete wall, but
they look at the suspension when they're changing that wheel around.
This is on lap 11 of 69 scheduled. You're watching live the Formula One Grand Prix of Canada. This is the man who is Mr. Formula One in Japan, despite the fact that Aguri Suzuki, fashion, and his car exploded in flames, has actually scored points, which Satoru Nakajima has not. There is Jean Alesi once again as we monitor the tire situation. He's being reeled in by the Pirelli shod car of Nelson Piquet. And here's Moreno on pit lane after that spin that looked to take him through the gravel traps.
Looks like something's going on with the car, the way that right front's locking up. Maybe the left rear's gone flat.
Let's learn more with John Bizignano.
Roberto Moreno has come into the pits. He has shut off the engine, but I think it was a mistake. They were changing all 4 tires very quickly. No, now they're looking at the back of the car. It has been a mistake that he has shut off the engine. They've got the starter up, but Roberto Moreno definitely has an extended pit stop. They cannot refire the engine. They're pushing him backwards. Very frustrated for the little Brazilian.
Tough weekend for Roberto. Had such a great race in Monaco 3 weeks ago. They're powered by that factory Ford V8, as you see Jean Alesi pressed now by Nelson Piquet. This weekend, Ford announced that they have a V12 engine on the blocks. They expect to test it before the year is out, and it'll be racing next year exclusively with the Benetton team.
Which will be good news for Benetton and good news for Benetton supporters, and of course good news for Pirelli, because the Benetton team is their assigned #1 team, and they want a V12 in the worst possible way. There you see them swerving around that bump on the straight. And it'll be very interesting to see how that Cosworth Ford V12 goes.
There is the third man to lead a Formula One race this year in 5 outings. Nigel Mansell, the Lion of Great Britain. Soon to be the Lion of Clearwater, Florida, where he's bought himself a home so he can play golf in the wintertime. Can't do that on the Isle of Man, I would bet.
He maintains, too, that by the scheduling the way it is, it'll give him 10 weeks more with his family by living in the States than it does in the Isle of Man.
Mansell leads Riccardo Patrese, his Williams teammate, by 5 seconds flat. Ayrton Senna another 5.3 seconds back. 3 seconds behind Senna is Alesi, followed a couple of car lengths by Nelson Piquet, and Alain Prost is now 3.6 seconds behind Piquet in the 6th and final points-paying position. You're on board with Ayrton Senna, and we'll be back for more live coverage of the Grand Prix of Canada. We're back live in Montreal, Canada for the Grand Prix of Canada here on ESPN, and coming up next Sunday, more live auto racing for you. It'll be the Banquet Frozen Foods 300 as the Winston Cup boys of in Sears Point, California. The first of 2 road courses this year. It'll be coming your way next Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Time live. Nigel Mansell has crossed the finish line to begin lap 16 of 69 in the Grand Prix of Canada. He leads Riccardo Patrese by 5.4 seconds. There you see Ayrton Senna in 3rd place, making his way down into the turn 1-2 complex. He is 6 seconds behind Patrese. Jean Alesi now 2.9 seconds behind Senna. Nelson Piquet has dropped back to a full second behind Alesi after challenging him earlier. And Alain Prost has now drifted back in 6th position, 3.5 seconds behind Piquet. So we're stable among the top 6 runners, and out front, Nigel Mansell is just ripping this course apart.
He does consistently does the fastest laps, and he's lapping on average about 3/4 of a second a lap quicker, for instance, than Ayrton Senna, who he now leads by nearly 12 seconds.
You're watching Jean Alesi in the Ferrari. There is Ayrton Senna going out the bottom of your screen. Nelson Piquet looks to be closing in a little now. Our pictures coming to us from Canadian television. Heavy braking. You can see the dark streaks on the road that show tires straining under the load, hauling these cars down 1,100 pounds apiece, plus a few pounds to make up the ballast of the cars that are carrying the in-car cameras. And they can brake from 180 miles an hour to about 70 miles an hour in about 100 yards.
Tremendous braking ability, these cars. A lot of downforce, sticky, big tires, and it just adds up to absolutely mind-blowing retardation.
Whistling down off the hill. Television really doesn't do that turn much good. We stood at the top of that hill, watched cars go away from us in practice yesterday. As you watch Nelson Piquet, cars just whistling from left to right down that hill, transferring. Drivers undergoing 4 G-loads.
Nelson Piquet, of course, will have his fingers crossed this afternoon, because remember, the last 2 races, he's only done about 3 laps total in the last 2 races.
Now, moments ago, Bertrand Gachot, running in one of the Jordans, was well up in the top 10, and then something like this happened. You see one of the Leighton House cars coming through the corner. Gachot overcooked the corner onto the start-finish straightaway and nearly collected Terry Boutsen, the 1989 winner of this race, in the Ligier to the right of your screen.
Terry Boutsen and Emanuele Pirro there in the Dallara made an amazing miss there, and that was the thing that I saw at the top of the screen and gave that awful yelp for about 10 minutes ago. That's what I saw. It's just starting.
Using all of that Formula One car braking we're just talking about. Those dark bands continue on the front tires of Jean Alesi in that red Ferrari, but he doesn't seem to be slowing down. Now there is Bertrand Gachot changing the tires that he just flat spotted.
Those lines that we're seeing obviously aren't a problem. We could look at it and think there's a blister line of blisters coming up from our point of view, but obviously from them it's not. One of the things that's very important for these guys is to get the tire pressure right. We've heard all this at Indianapolis, do you remember, last year. These guys complained about the tires being slightly overpressured, and as soon as they get overpressured, they start to skate around. The more they skate around, the more heat they put into the surface of the tire, and boom, they blister. And I know that Goodyear have just a little bit of a problem this afternoon with these D-compound tires. They're the softest, and they want to make sure that these guys don't run them into the ground in the first few laps when the car's at its heaviest, with about 200, anywhere between 200 and 225 litres of fuel on board.
You are on, and your chauffeur is the defending Formula One world champion, Ayrton Senna. A little correction coming out of that corner as he put down the foot and got the power out of the 12-cylinder Honda behind his neck. That little pedestal you see off the airbox is where the onboard camera sits. Very aerodynamic, very tiny camera, and it works really well.
Ayrton Senna has not got a contract with Ron Dennis and McLaren Honda, or McLaren Honda next year yet. Well, I've no doubt they'll be doing lots and lots of negotiating. I think John Bisignano's got something for us down in the pits. John?
David, just a quick update on Roberto Moreno. He came into the pits. He shut the engine off. Excuse me, Ford. There was no problem with the engine, but there was a big problem with the rear suspension. The team didn't know if he had come in contact with another car, but the spin and going through the grass damaged the rear suspension where they could not continue. Moreno out of the Canadian Grand Prix.
Watch Ayrton Senna flashing through the left and right complex, down the hill, onto the straightaway leading the pit entrance, hitting almost 190 miles an hour. Fast lap of the race, I was about to say, had been turned in by the second place Williams Renault of Ricardo Patrese, and Nigel Mansell snatched it right back. 1 minute 23.452 seconds. The Williams teammates running 1-2 in this race, and at this point, running away from it.
Ayrton Senna still in the low 25, 1 minute 25 second range. Mansell now into the mid 1 minute 23 as the fuel gets burnt off these cars. So consistently, Nigel stays about 3/4 of a second to a second a lap ahead of his arch nemesis, I guess. Everybody's arch nemesis. And that is, of course, this guy here, Ayrton Senna.
New marketing trick there on Ayrton Senna's visor. You see the white band at the top of his eye. It says Acura on it rather than Honda. There you see Jean Alesi in the 4th place car, followed by Nelson Piquet. It is Mansell, Patrese, Senna, Alesi, Piquet, and Prost. We'll be right back. Back live in Montreal, Canada, working lap number 19 of 69 scheduled in this race. Nigel Mansell has led it from the first corner, and he remains your leader by now 6.4 seconds over his teammate Ricardo Patrese. There you see Jean Alesi in the Ferrari running in 4th position behind the red and white McLaren of Ayrton Senna. There is Nelson Piquet, getting a lot of airtime today. A little bit further back in the pack, there are some good races going on. Let me run down the order. It is Mansell, Patrese, Senna, Alesi, Piquet, Prost, and Stefano Modena in 7th, followed by Andre de Cesaris, Ivan Capelli, Terry Boutsen, Gianni Morbidelli, J.J. Leto, Pierluigi Martini, Eric Bernard, Eric Komas, Mika Hakkinen. Bertrand Gachot is 1 lap down, followed by Maurizio Gugelmin and Emanuele Pirro. 10 points at stake for a victory, followed by 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1. 1st through 6 earn points. Jean Alesi in the leading Ferrari. With the 2 still active in this field. Senna going out the bottom of your picture. Leads coming in on points. 40 with 4 victories in 1991 to 11 for Alain Prost in 2nd.
So he's got what one could call a comfortable cushion. Now it looks like we're coming into a whole bunch of slower cars here. Down to that turn 10 end. This is one of the best places to view this race. There you see those cars that are about to put a lap down. That's Gugelmin. That's one of the Brabham. That must be Martin Brundle. And at the back of the group would be one of the Delaras. There's Nigel Mansell, the red number 5. And his car showing up well as he strolls off to a easy-looking lead at the moment. His tyres look certainly okay from here. Into that turn 1 complex, uses that curve to pull the car around, puts his wheel up onto the curve and pulls it around.
We mentioned that Nigel has bought a home in Clearwater, Florida. He has been very complimentary of karts rules lately. Says he might like to drive at the Indy 500 someday. We asked him about the rule about new 3.5-liter engines.
I'll say it straight from the hip. It will be the biggest mistake a kart can make to go to a 3.5-liter aspirated engine. I say this because the disparity between the engines, the fuel that you use, you just can't control it. They're unreliable. I think the actual regulations they have at the moment are pretty well fair. And, you know, you've got great close racing. And if you go that route, I think it'll be the biggest sad mistake that the series will probably make.
Well, there is an interesting counterpoint for you. You saw one of the Minardis on the racetrack. Couldn't tell if that was Gianni Morbidelli or Pierluigi Martini stopped on the backside of the track.
Gugelmin seems to be holding up Ayrton Senna somewhat, which is very unusual. They're very close buddies, shared rooms in London for some considerable time when they were doing their Formula 3 thing back in Europe a long time ago. Got round them now. I don't know about that. I have to sort of disagree, I think, somewhat with Nigel. I think the 3.5-liter engine formula in Indianapolis and kart racing will bring in a whole bunch of people that would ever, you know, will make it more expensive, and some of those privateers will fall by the wayside, I'm afraid. But it could just elevate the standard of racing in that type of racing unbelievably.
Watching great racing on the track here at Montreal as the leaders lap slower cars. Here's one of the Brabhams about to be taken down by the 28 of Jean Alesi, running in 4th place.
It's Martin Brundle, of course, because he's the only Brabham there. There's Emanuele Pirro in the V10 engine, Judd engine, Delara. That engine has gone well this year, there's no doubt about it.
I believe he is now 2 laps down after an early pit stop. Jean Alesi moving along well. Quite the darling of our friends from Canadian television. It's a beautiful day on the Ile de Notre Dame, and we are more than a third of a way through the Grand Prix of Canada. Thrill as you watch live the Grand Prix of Canada. There is Alain Prost in the number 27 Ferrari. That certainly conjures up the name of Gilles Villeneuve to Canadian fans. Villeneuve, the most legendary auto racer in Canadian history, who died tragically in a Formula 1 crash at Zolder, Belgium. But the 27 is occupied by Alain Prost right now, as you see Minardi being pushed off the back stretch. Now we have pit stop action. This is the Jordan team once again. They've made a couple of stops with their boys. We can't tell whether this is Andrea de Cesaris or Bertrand Gachot. It is de Cesaris. They've only been in once. Now both cars have stopped for tires. That may be a sign of things to come for the rest of our field. Jean Alesi in the 28 Ferrari.
These guys, Alesi and Alain Prost, also had trouble getting around Mauricio Gugelmin in the V10 engine Leighton House. He wasn't going to give up easily.
Now, moments ago, Mika Hakkinen was claimed by that dastardly final corner we've been talking about since the beginning of the show. And you can see how the troughs made in the gravel really pounds the race car.
And spun him around there and deranged the rear suspension. But Mika Hakkinen out of the race. And Johnny Herbert, who was driving the second car, which you did mention in the grid, failed to make it. Very unfortunate. Johnny Herbert went like a scalded cat all weekend, right in the middle of the field in all the practice and qualifying, until, of course, as usual, the one that mattered, the drive shaft broke 1 lap in, and he didn't make the field. But look for good things from Johnny Herbert in the Lotus as the year unfolds. Alain Prost.
Alain Prost running in 6th place, the final points paying position. He is behind Nelson Piquet by about 1.1 seconds. There you see the crane hauling off Mika Hakkinen's Lotus.
If you could see that crane, you would realize how it manages to reach from way beyond the other side of that guardrail. It's got the longest jib I think I've ever seen on a crane. It is enormous, but it certainly is doing the trick.
There's the pit entrance in the background. Behind it, the rowing basin that was used in the 76 Olympics. A blue flag indicates to one of the Jordans to let the Ligier go by. We haven't seen that much this year.
No, that was Eric Tomac with the red helmet and the Ligier trying to get around, as you say, one of the Jordans.
You are on board, I believe, with Alain Prost. There's Jean Alesi. Perhaps who that's the Alesi runs in 4th position, as he has just about from the get-go once he got around his teammate Prost, who just doesn't seem to be able to keep pace with the other.
He put a bit of daylight between himself and Nelson Piquet just a few laps ago, but it certainly seems to have leveled off there. Nelson Piquet hanging on very well with the V8 engine to the V12 of Jean Alesi. Alain Prost has caught them both.
There is Prost, the all-time leader in Formula 1 victories with 44, 3-time world champion.
Petresi is 6.5 seconds behind teammate and team leader Nigel Mansell, and Senna is now nearly 10 seconds behind Riccardo Petresi, so the two Williams certainly seem to have the grip of this field.
We saw from the in-car that as the sun goes down, shadows begin to stretch across the racetrack. It's going to make things interesting, as is
Senna.
Slower car. Senna's slowing on the backstretch.
Senna pulled up and caused this.
And Nelson Piquet must have stopped to look because the Ferraris are all over him.
I think Nelson Piquet made the most of it and got by both the Ferraris.
That's Alesi slowing down. Must have been Alesi who stopped to look. Piquet now you're on board with Senna going very slowly.
Well, I think what happened was that Senna probably had a problem and pulled up very quickly in front of Alesi, who obviously had to take some avoiding action, which allowed the other two to catch him up, and Moreno jumped over both the other two Ferraris and got around them.
Senna working the gear lever there. Might be a gearbox problem. As you watch Mauricio Gugelmin now. Gugelmin running in 17th position, a lap down. Senna just poking around the racetrack, trying to get back to the pits. He was in 3rd place, 3 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi after 25 laps. Hand up to tell those behind him as he approaches the hairpin, as far from the pits as you can get on this racetrack.
Yeah, not a good spot to be. He seems to be out of truth completely. Now then, as you said at the beginning, Senna was looking for the perfect score. Well, his perfect score is now gone away. There he is going slowly around that hairpin.
He was hoping to tie Sir Jack Brabham and the late Jimmy Clark with 5 straight victories. 2nd on the all-time winning streak list behind Alberto Ascari, who won 9 back in 1952 and 53.
course, we have absolutely no idea of knowing what's going on. It could be something really simple, like a throttle cable broken, and it's just idling and taking you along at slow speed. But he has to go through these fast corners at that very slow speed, which I think that he will think is extremely dangerous, because, in fact, he's pulling over, because once he gets in there, he's going along, pootling along at that speed. I mean, it's pretty dangerous.
And so, one story has been told. The other remains. Can Nigel Mansell take the first victory for the Williams team in some time? I mentioned before, Renault expects to see victories from the Williams team this year. Nigel seems perfectly poised to do it. We have 10 cars on the lead lap right now. It is Mansell, Patrese. Piquet moves up into third position, taking advantage, as David mentioned, of the problem suffered by Ayrton Senna to get around Jean Alesi. Prost now also got a... And now one of the 27, that's Prost. These guys are dropping out before we can reset the order. Alain Prost with a driveline problem in the Ferrari, and he is right in front of the pits.
He will probably try and work his way across the pit straight here to get into the pit exit lane, I imagine.
He'll have to cross the lap. He'll cross the track to do it. There's the end of the pit wall across the way on the left.
He's going to leave it over here. He considers it to be safer over here than trying to get up on the other side, which it probably is. Maybe making for that crane you can see in the background there.
Yeah, he's on the inside of the corner, so the cars on the racing line will be keeping across from him. There is Nigel Mansell. Tough break for Alain Prost, who will certainly fall out of second place in the championship chase. Dramatic moments unfolding here at the Grand Prix of Canada. The Brazilian flag waves now for Roberto Moreno, because Ayrton Senna is gone.
It's necessary to control a lot of pilots, because the last year it's very dangerous, the Formula 1. I think it's good.
Personally, I'm not conscious of it, no. I mean, once you're out on the track and you're clad in all your gear and you're out there with like 25 other cars, you don't have time to think if somebody's watching you from outside. So, you know, racing incidents are going to happen. That's life, that's motor racing, happens all the time.
What I would like to see is one driver in this commission, because I would like to be judged with somebody that knows what's happening into one car.
It's a little bit tricky. I mean, motor racing, we are a racing driver, not taxi driver. So basically, when we have somebody in front of us, we would like to overtake him.
If you have a question to ask the driver, we have a new address for you. Post Office Box 117, Plainville, Connecticut, 060620117. Send us your question for a driver like Alain Prost right there. We'll ask it of the drivers and bring you their answers. That question referred to the new committee of safety that is charged with monitoring the behavior of drivers on the racetrack under racing conditions. And thus far, they have imposed one penalty. At Monaco, they parked Pierluigi Martini for 10 seconds for blocking, not allowing faster cars by. Martini is on the racetrack, so his teammate Gianni Morbidelli was the man driving the Minardi that we saw parked on the backstretch earlier. Your order is Nigel Mansell by 11 seconds over teammate Riccardo Patrese. Nelson Piquet in the Benetton is third, followed by the Ferrari of Jean Alesi. Stefano Modena fourth. Another car is out. This is the Lola. This must be Eric Bernard. His teammate went up in flames at the beginning of this race.
That is indeed Eric Bernard, the Frenchman. A lot of people say that he's as good as Jean Alesi.
Let's get down to John Bisignano.
A good set of Goodyears has just come in, and Alain Prost has also come into the garage. A set of Goodyears in the Ferrari garage. Lee Gogg we are with. We can get our camera, Henderson, and the door is going down. Sorry, Lee Gogg, how does the wear look?
Actually, the wear isn't bad, but spinning the rear tires, he's blistered his rears. And that primarily comes from low grip, not enough downforce, and wheel spin. So he actually blistered it, didn't wear him out, he got him too hot.
What about the rest of the Goodyear cars? Are they going to have to stop?
Doesn't look like an individual thing, but from here, from the pits, the Williams look like they're good. They've got a big lead, they can coast now, so we're hoping they don't stop. If they don't have too much wheel spin, they shouldn't have to stop.
Hopefully no more wheel spin for the Goodyear boys.
In a race like this, John, it's going to be hard to prevent it. Jean Alesi going around Stefan Johansson, driving for the Footwork Porsche team. Footwork team getting both cars into the race for the first time this year, and they are very happy about that. Johansson, by the way, on ESPN Speed Week earlier, I said I thought it was Johansson's 8th team in 9 years. It is actually his 10th team in 11 seasons. He is the Mr. Congeniality of Formula One. He drives for everybody.
And of course, the other coincidence is driving together with Alboreto this year. They used to be Ferrari teammates back in, what, 85 and 86?
I believe that's correct. Speaking of Ferraris, here comes Jean Alesi trying to avoid the bumps on the fastest part of the racetrack here in Montreal. Nelson Piquet now in third position for Benetton, followed by Alesi. And then the lap car of Steve Johnson, as he's known to his friends back in England. 7 cars remain on the lead lap. Mansell has extended his lead now to 12.3 seconds over Patrese, who has yet to come under fire from Nelson Piquet, who has now turned in fast lap of the race, however, at 1:23.9.
Unlikely to come into too much trouble from Nelson Piquet, as Patrese is a cool 30 seconds ahead of Nelson Piquet. So Nigel Mansell is at the moment enjoying a 45-second lead over Nelson Piquet, which is pretty staggering. And I've no doubt that Lee Cobb from Goodyear is rather hoping that Nigel will just ease off just a little bit here, because he's got this race in the bag and it would be a shame to have to stop now, because they won't know really what Nelson Piquet can do with his Pirelli tyres. I think they won't know what he can do, but they might.
They might indeed. It is 32 laps complete. We're working lap number 33 of 69 scheduled. Down into the corner comes one of the Tyrrells. That is Stefano Modena, who had such a great race at Monte Carlo 3 weeks ago until the engine suddenly let go late in the race, took out himself. Ricardo Patrese, and the third car, I think Mark Blundell on the Brabham, also slid on the oil from the Tyrrell Honda of Stefano Modena and took him out of the race as well.
The Tyrrell Hondas, of course, having the V10 power that took Senna to the World Championship last year. And, of course, Prost the year before that, a tremendous power unit for the Tyrrell team. And it's gone very well this year. Not quite as well as people thought that they would go, though, I must say, overall. Next year, changes in that team. It looks as if Satoru Nakajima is going to retire. He's decided he's not too keen on all the extensive traveling for Formula One. And so there'll be lots of people lining up to drive what is potentially one of the quickest cars out there.
Modena in 5th place. Good position to pick up points for Ken Tyrrell's team.
It's amazing, actually, that his engine blew up just 2 weeks ago at Monte Carlo and took Ricardo Patrese out on Honda oil. And then, hey presto, the other morning, the same thing happened again to Ricardo. So he was getting just a bit leery about Honda oil on racetracks.
It is Mansell, Patrese, Piquet, Alesi, and Modena as you watch a boat make its way through the St. Lawrence Ship Canal. We'll be right back. Back to the beginning of the second North American swing for the 1991 Formula One World Driving Championship, beginning today in Montreal, Canada, with exotic Mexico City coming up in 2 weeks. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of Canada is brought to you by the Upjohn Company. If you're concerned about hair loss, see your doctor. By Suzuki. Your Suzuki dealer has the ride you've been waiting for and the financing to get it. And by ProGuard gasoline additives for a smoother running engine. Working lap number 35, you watch Nelson Piquet making his way around in 3rd place for the Benetton Ford team. Nigel Mansell leads by 14.9 seconds now as we take a look on a Canadian television replay of one of the Jordan cars lapping Ligier, or at least passing Ligier, I should say.
Gets the curb on the outside, and what are we going to see, folks?
Something remarkable about that, but it escapes me. But we have a Ferrari slowing on the backside.
And there's only one left out there, so it can only be one of them.
Oh, the arm goes in the air. That's pretty much an international sign of race driving surrender.
He's going at a fair lick, but of course, we have no idea, no way of knowing what's wrong with the car.
Substantially slower.
Smoke coming out of it there, pulling over. He'll probably pull up onto the grass in a minute, wandering rather down the middle of the road somewhat here.
Alain Prost is already out. This is Jean Alesi being overtaken by one of the Leighton House cars doing battle with the Dallara. Here comes Stefano Johansson.
If that was Ivan Capelli, that will move him up to 5th spot now. And of course,
getting worse. Getting much worse.
Can't get much worse than that.
I think I go kill mosquitoes over on the grass.
There you go. Long walk from there. He's down at turn 10.
Right next to the LaRousse Lola car that Aguri Suzuki burned to the ground in the first few laps of this race. There's Mauricio Gugelmin in one of the Leighton House cars that have not performed terribly well here, although as David mentioned, they're about to get into the points.
Nigel driving around that big bump there. I mean, they go for a long way to move that bump, but it's pretty bad. And so,
As he flashes across the start-finish line, Nigel's lead over his teammate Riccardo Patrese.
To cool nearly 16 seconds, 15.79 seconds. Around that turn 1 complex, just clips that curve on the inside, helps the car around by putting his wheels up on that inside curve. Not quite the same as putting his wheels on the outside curve.
We have seen so many blown engines this weekend, David. 6 on Friday morning alone in first practice. We're just getting to the part of the season where we'll hit the wide open circuits, where these guys will be revving these things up to 15,000 RPM. We'll be in Mexico City in 2 weeks where the altitude is 7,400 feet. That's not a good sign, I should think.
Well, as it gets more and more competitive, we saw the grid was so close together. These guys, of course, have got to try harder and harder. And, of course, the way you get more power and more speed out of a race car is to rev it more. And the more you rev it, they just get to the point where they've got to give up.
Donna Lacey waving to the crowd. There's Stefan Johansson having a moment in the Formula One sun. He hasn't seen in a while.
Is that Porsche engine smoky as he went out of the corner? It looks like it's about to be lapped again by Nigel Mansell. What will it put him, 2 or 3 laps down?
Let's say several. I tell you what, the footwork team will take a finish if they can get one. Watch the closing speed of Nigel Mansell coming by Stefano Martina. Excuse me, Stefan Johansson.
The Williams cars this year, of course, have shown that they are absolutely capable of winning races. Had a tremendous run at Rio in the hands of Riccardo Patrese and, of course, Mansell before he had a problem. At Monte Carlo, he had a great second spot, and, of course, Patrese led at Imola. So these cars, there's no real surprise.
This is a battle for position. This is Ivan Capelli in 5th place. Behind him, the red Dallara of J.J. Leto from Finland. Leto had a great race in Imola, winning his first podium in the San Marino Grand Prix. Protege of former world champion Keke Rosberg of Finland, who also has Mika Hakkinen, who was already out of this race when his Lotus hit the gravel track.
J.J. Leto, of course, another graduate of the British Formula 3 Championship, which is the way to get into Formula 1. 2 other classic examples being Senna, Martin Brundle, Stefan Johansson, Jonathan Palmer, J.J. Leto, all absolute clear winners in their year of that series. Leto now giving Ivan Capelli a good run for his money in that car. And they're looking for 5th. That's 5th and 6th spot.
They are both in the points, both using new engines in Formula 1 this year. The Leighton House car has the Ilmor V10, the same folks who brought us the Chevy Indy V8. And that red Dallara is powered by John Judd out of Great Britain. His V10, also looking for a corporate nameplate on the valve covers. Both going well. The Leighton House car, the Aqua car in front, apparently needs a very smooth racetrack to perform well, such as they'll see next week at Mexico City and down the road at Magny-Cours in France. The Dallara perhaps a little bit more amenable. J.J. Leto may just be biding his time. John Judd's engine concern, I believe, is owned in part by Sir Jack Brabham.
I think it's owned quite largely by Sir Jack Brabham. I don't know. If John Judd turns up at the Butcher's Arms, we've heard me mention this place before, in his new Mercedes 560, so the engine business can't be too bad.
Leto with a little bit of oil on the front of the helmet, as we are just past halfway in this 69-lap race. The circuit, 2.75 miles around. They actually lengthened the circuit when they modified the corner this year by about 150 feet. And, of course, as is usual in motor racing, the cars promptly went 0.6 of a second faster.
And, of course, it's a slower corner. Another interesting point about this, we've got 2 English-built V10s, the Ilmor engine in the Leighton House car, the Judd engine in the red Dallara here, and, of course, the Dallara is on Pirellis, and the Leighton House is on Goodyear. Leighton House have had such a mixed years since we saw him do so well to Capelli in the original Leighton House back in 1989.
Leighton House car with Ivan Capelli pulls away a little bit. There is Frank Williams, patriarch of the Williams Formula 1 team. Danny Bradshaw, their PR representative next to him. It's quite a day for Williams here in Canada. We'll be back in a moment. We are back in beautiful Montreal, one of the oldest cities in North America. But in 2 weeks' time, we'll be coming to you from Mexico City, a whole different ball game altogether. At 7,400 feet of altitude, the Grand Prix of Mexico is coming your way Sunday, June 17th at midnight, Sunday night midnight. Downtown, we'll be down there shortly, David. When this race wraps up, it's been a great one thus far. There you see the battle. Excuse me, not a battle. Here comes your race leader, Nigel Mansell.
Well, that's Riccardo Patrese.
Is that Riccardo Patrese?
Riccardo Patrese about to put a lap on Maurizio Gugelmin.
He just handled this, David. I give it. Riccardo Patrese took his 4th pole in a record 213 Grand Prix starts, but his neck was giving him all kinds of trouble after he cracked his helmet in a vicious crash on Friday. There is Nigel Mansell, our leader, I do believe. 17.1 seconds ahead of teammate Riccardo Patrese. And recall that 2 years ago, Williams went 1-2 in this race in the hands of Terry Boutsen and Riccardo Patrese. John Bizignano has a comment from the pit lane.
Riccardo Patrese, in that accident, they have a G meter inside the car, and his body exceeded 10 Gs. The G meter was pinned on 10. Now, anyone who flies an airplane knows that a G force around 6 can cause blacking out. So if you can imagine, over 10 Gs, Riccardo Patrese hitting very hard on Friday.
Terrible crash. No wonder they got a car on the track, and that Riccardo Patrese was able to get into it. Not only is it in it, he is driving magnificently. He runs second to this man. Whoops. I guess we're back to Nigel, red number 5.
Nigel Mansell on lap 41 just cranked up a 1:23.2, which is the fastest lap of the race to date. Not quite a new lap record yet, but still a long way to go and a lot of fuel to use up.
Just past halfway. We're working lap number 42. 69 laps in the race. One of the Williams cars, Patrese pitting very slowly.
Is the wing broken?
Let's get down to John Bizignano.
As you say, Riccardo Patrese is coming down the pit lane very slow. The Williams boys were surprised by him coming into the pits. The engine is running. The right rear tire looks a little bit flat. They are changing all 4 tires. An awful lot of smoke off the back end of the car. That's the dust from the carbon fiber. But my gosh, the right rear did look like it was a bit askew, but everything seems right. He's trying to get in gear. It's a semi-automatic, and he is out of here. Riccardo Patrese, very close pit stop. He must be missing a few gears.
Well, he came in with the left front up in the air, which either meant that the left front was bent or the right rear was down. There is Nelson Piquet.
Probably a flat right rear, one would think. Nelson Piquet, of course, now moves up in the second spot in the Pirelli shod V8 engine Benetton car. V12 engine coming for these guys next year out of Ford. It's going to be interesting to see what they can do with that, because this engine, this V8 engine, revs to a cool 13,000 odd RPMs in a V8 form, which is absolutely astronomical. If they get the same technology into a V12, they'll be cranking around at about 16,000 RPM.
Cosworth Engineering says they'll get it up to 16,000. What's that, about 250 revolutions per second?
Awful lot. Makes a lot of noise. Sound good in Indy, though, won't it?
Indeed. For those of you wondering about former Benetton driver Sandro Nannini, who had that horrific accident where the helicopter blade severed his right arm, it was reattached. He recently got his Italian driver's license back, picked up a brand new Mercedes-Benz, and he plans to drive a Formula 3 car in the very near future. So, life is looking up for Sandro Nannini right now. As for his old teammate Nelson Piquet, running second in the Grand Prix of Canada. We'll take a quick time out and be back live. Back live at the Grand Prix of Canada here on ESPN, working lap 45 of 69 schedule. Thank you, Dudley Do-Right. Riccardo Patrese, who pitted just moments ago while running second, is now back to 5th place behind this man, his teammate Nigel Mansell and John Bizignano. And the pit lane has more on Patrese. John?
Well, Bob, one of the reasons he lost so much time out on the track was because it was a long stop. He came in, his right rear was flat, and he just had to be very careful coming into the pit lane. He is okay in the gearbox. I thought that when he was trying to get it into gear, he did have some trouble, but everything is actually working very fine. With these new tires, he should be very, very quick.
Well, he's going to need to be. He is running in 5th place, 9.5 seconds down to the 4th place car of young J.J. Leto. Nigel Mansell has 55.4 seconds in hand over the 2nd place Benetton of Nelson Piquet. Now, moments ago, we had another drama. Ivan Capelli, running in 4th place for the Leighton House team that desperately needs championship points, parked his car out on the backside with another blown engine. Tough break for them. They will find themselves in pre-qualifying at the halfway point of the season if they're not careful, which means they have to go out at 8 o'clock on a Friday morning on a dirty racetrack and try to beat all but 3 other cars in hopes of making the main qualifying sessions on Friday and Saturday afternoons of any Formula 1 weekend.
Yeah, tough break for him, because he was going extremely well. He was up to 4th spot, so that is very, very disappointing for that team.
No problems evident for Nigel Mansell. 3 cars remain on the lead lap. Nigel Mansell, Nelson Piquet, and Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell. J.J. Leto runs in 4th place for the Dallara, picking up valuable points that will get them out of the pre-qualifying core. Ricardo Patrese running well now in 5th position, but a lap down. Andre de Cesaris in 6th. Pierluigi Martini in 7th. Bertrand Gachot in 8th. Eric Coma in 9th. 2 laps down. Ivan Capelli was before he blew the engine. Pirro runs 10th now. Mauricio Gugelmin 11th. Satoru Nakajima 12th. And Stefan Johansson, I believe, has parked the Footwork Porsche. In fact, we may see it in one of these shots. I saw it over on the left side of the racetrack. He has shown 5 laps down, quite obviously out of the race.
And the fastest lap of the race still belongs to Nigel Mansell at 1 minute 23.2 seconds. Getting down towards lap record time. Last year at 1:22, 1 minute 22 seconds and change.
It is a very warm afternoon. Temperature getting up to about 85, 86 degrees. The breeze has abated somewhat. And here is the team backing up to go home. McLaren, both cars out of the race. Ferrari, both cars out of the race. When was the last time we saw that?
And the Williams of Nigel Mansell serenely going on his way there. Here we see him coming into the backside of the circuit. The shadows getting longer and longer. Lightning more difficult as those shadows deepen and get darker across the track. Hot out there too at the moment, sitting in the sun as it shines on him in the car. It's extremely hot in any racing car, and of course these are no real exception. Under the bridge, the oil flag out there.
Gently, Nigel.
It's oil, of course, or debris, depending. But it's just a warning flag for the drivers. That is the yellow flag with the red stripe.
This has been quite a weekend in Canada. On Friday, there was a fire in a telephone transformer. We had no telephone communication with the outside of the racetrack for any purpose on Friday. And if you ever want to see chaos in your life, try and get all of these multi-million-dollar teams and some 1,600 journalists from around the world and not a telephone to be had. A view of the Jacques Cartier Bridge over the mighty St. Lawrence River. We're live in Montreal, and we'll be right back. Going on live here in Montreal. Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell Honda. First of the Pirelli runners, am I correct, to come in and pit for what is apparently tire wear quite late in the race. Now, moments ago, to the left of your screen, J.J. Leto in 3rd position. To the right, Ricardo Patrese, who is on new Goodyear tires, and he is ripping through this field. Here is the pass on Leto for 3rd place.
The way that Williams can keep that tight line around that 10 hairpin there shows that the car's got great grip, and of course it's absolutely rocketed off with the Renault V10 horsepower.
Here comes Andre de Cesaris and the Jordan, who began his, Bertrand Gachot. Boy, I had a great story about Andre de Cesaris too. Here's the pass. Gachot on Pierluigi Martini in the black and yellow Minardi with Ferrari V12 power. That V8 Ford got him under braking.
Into turn 10 again. Now we see Gachot again with the 7-up Jordan V8 engine. They have like 1 or 2 systems behind the Benetton Ford engine. The big question is, of course, will they get the V12? Probably a year after Benetton do.
There is Pierluigi Martini, who suffered a terrible weekend at Monte Carlo 3 weeks ago. He was roundly pounded by the other drivers for holding things up time and again. And he holds the distinction of the first and only Formula One driver to be penalized during a race this year for blocking. He was parked for 10 seconds at Monte Carlo. Gearbox troubles kept them aback this year. Here's Bertrand Gachot. He's been shown in all of the official standings this year as being French. Now, previously, he was using a Belgian passport. He was born in Luxembourg. His parents have mixed nationalities. He is truly a European, and that's what he likes to call himself. That little blue flag you see with a circle of stars on his helmet, emblematic of a unified Europe.
Ricardo Patrese's just done the fastest lap of the race at a 1:22.6. That's his new tyres. There we see him. This is a lap after his fastest lap. So Ricardo Patrese on his way up through the field, trying to get at least that 2nd spot back from Nelson Piquet.
There is Nigel Mansell as our Canadian television friends split between the 2 cars. Looks like they had a little smoke there at the bottom of the screen.
As they went out of the picture. Yeah, we can't see who it is.
See if we can catch up. It's Stefan Johansson.
Well, it was smoking there 10 laps ago, so it's still keeping going.
Well, I jumped to the conclusion that Steph right there in the footwork Porsche was out of the race earlier, but he has still shown 5 laps down.
So he must have had a long stop somewhere or something, because we keep getting his lap time, which is pretty slow. He's lapping in about 1 minute 30, 1 minute 29. Everybody else is lapping in between 24 and 26.
There's Riccardo Patrese now. You saw the Williams team earlier looking like they were ready for a stop. Patrese fires down the front straightaway, 170 miles an hour or so, then braking hard for the turn 1 and 2 complex here at Montreal. This is not a race known for tremendous attrition over the years, but we've certainly had it today. We show 13 cars still running of the 26 that started. Half the field is gone. We are working lap number 51 of 69. Let's get a comment about Riccardo Patrese's situation in the pit lane. And John.
Bob, Riccardo Patrese was fitted with the very soft D Goodyear compound. That has a lot of grip. Most people started with it, but the reason he's faster now is, of course, is that 2/3 of his fuel load is gone. Riccardo Patrese is flying around this track in record-breaking time. And, of course, Frank Williams and everyone down here in this pit hopes he continues.
Well, I'm sure he hopes he continues, too. They've had a bit of a slightly unlucky season. He was very unlucky, of course, at Monte Carlo to get involved in somebody else's engine blow-up, because I think that Riccardo Patrese could have easily finished second again there, which would be a big help, of course, to his World Championship points.
There is Nigel Mansell making his way around, 58 seconds clear of Nelson Piquet. Mansell hopes to break his tie with Sterling Moss as the most victorious Formula One drivers in history never to win the World Championship. A beautiful afternoon in Montreal, Canada. As you look down the St. Lawrence River, lots of boats in action today and lots of fans on hand on the Ile de Notre Dame on the circuit named for Gilles Villeneuve, site of round 5 of the Formula One World Championship. Coming up in 2 weeks, round 6 from exotic Mexico City. Coming your way Sunday, June 17th at midnight Eastern Time. So join us for that. It has been a most interesting day as you watch Nelson Piquet making his way around in second place, now 56.8 seconds behind Nigel Mansell, and the only car other than leader Mansell on the same lap. But we haven't seen a pit stop from Mansell yet, and John Bizignano in the pit lane can perhaps tell us why.
Bob, we're standing right in the Williams pit, and they told him to come on in and try and get some new tires. He seems to be losing ground. But he said, no, guys, I feel secure. The lead is not good enough to come in and make a pit stop. He hates the pits. You know, he's had some tough times in here before. He is going to stay out on the track and try and make those tires last. He's in the lead, and he wants to stay there.
As you watch Pierluigi Martini make his way around, you caught a look there at J.J. Leto, the young Finn who had climbed out of his Dallara. He was in 4th place at the time. He has parked it, and we are now down to 12 runners in this race. Here comes old Nige. I mentioned that he is trying to break a tie with Sterling Moss on 16 career victories among drivers who have never won the World Championship.
And of course that would give him one more victory than Sterling, which would in fact make him the most victorious Englishman as opposed to Briton of all time. The 2 most victorious Britons being Jimmy Clark on 33 wins and Jackie Stewart on 27. Jackie Stewart on 27 and Jimmy Clark. Nigel is still cranking out laps in the 25 range, 1 minute 25, although that last one was a 1 minute 27 seconds, but I think he probably got held up by somebody. And Nelson Piquet is consistently just a little bit quicker, but he's a long way behind. He's 56 seconds behind. I don't see him as a big threat, and I don't think that Nigel does either, because when all's said and done, he's only got 20-odd laps to go.
Riccardo Patrese is lapping in the 1:23 range. There you see Andrea De Cesaris, who began his Formula One career in this race, now in his 154th Grand Prix start, longest among any Grand Prix driver without a single victory. He turned 32 back on Friday. 154 Grand Prix at 32 years of age. This Jordan car, by the way, will not win the race today, but the Jordan team has been victorious thus far on the weekend. On Friday, they held a mechanics raft race on the Olympic rowing basin behind the pits, and the Jordan team came through with a resounding victory, and in the inimitable Formula One tradition, immediately issued a blizzard of press releases touting their achievement. It's
Very important, of course, for this Jordan team of De Cesaris and Gasho to get points to try and get themselves out of the diabolical pre-qualifying on Friday morning, which everybody just absolutely hates Gary Fraser's involvement.
We are working lap number 55. Let's get down to the pit lane once again with John Visignano.
Alain Prost went out of the Canadian Grand Prix with a gearbox problem. That's an automatic gearbox in his car, in that Ferrari. And then his teammate, John Alesi, went out with motor problems. They don't know exactly what they were, but the V12 gave up on the Ferrari. They don't have the car back, so they can't tell us exactly what it was. And Ayrton Senna, the man who has won the first 4 Grand Prix so far this year, that beautiful V12 Honda gave up with electrical problems. Very unusual. This has been a very tough circuit for the top runners.
Indeed, it has been. There's Bertrand Gachot. You got to look at that flag on his helmet that I was speaking of earlier.
Of course, one of the things that makes it tough on the cars, although they've resurfaced the circuit here at Gilles Villeneuve, it's still very, very bumpy. And there's no doubt about it that these electronic components, the computers, the onboard computers, the wiring, it's tough for them to stand all that shaking around all the time.
And running right now in lockstep, Nigel Mansell and Riccardo Patrese, first and third on the racetrack.
But, of course, Patrese is a lap down. And, of course, the thing is, will Nigel let him go around here, get his lap back, and set off in real serious pursuit of Nelson Piquet? Yes, he has.
Nicely done, gentlemen. Piquet lapping at about, Riccardo Patrese lapping at about 124. Nigel about 125, almost 126. At this point, Nigel has taken a page from the book of Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost and is going just as fast as he thinks he needs to in order to win this race, with 13 laps remaining this time around.
Essential for Nigel, for a number of reasons, to try and win this race. A lot of pressure on him, a lot of pressure on the Williams team. And Johansson coming in the footwork Porsche. Down.
Well, I don't know if he's coming in. No, he's coming in. They are pitted at the far end of the pit lane. Tough break for them. That footwork Porsche team desperately looking for a finish in 1991. Let's get down to John.
Both cars from the footwork Porsche team were in the pits earlier with stuck throttle cables, identical problems. They could not fix Alboretto's, and Stefan Johansson went back out with somewhat of a dodgy cable. It's a very brave man. We'll try and find out why he came back in this time, but as you said, they really needed a result to try and keep them out of the very difficult pre-qualifier.
Well, of course, the trouble is with the team that they've been turning in most of the races in the official qualifying, they, of all people, will never get through that pre-qualifying session, and that'll be just disastrous for somebody with the reputation that Porsche has got to be into the pre-qualifying in the first place, and then to not even get out of pre-qualifying. It's going to be even more desperate.
Well, the pre-qualifying teams are definitely performing well. The Delaras and the Jordans ran well up in the pack here. The Delaras are now out, but the Jordans still doing well. We'll be right back. Live in Montreal, Canada, in the Grand Prix of Canada, you see the pit board there for Nigel Mansell with the British Union Jack up in the corner. They're taking off the word fuel. John Visignano down in the pit lane has some speculation for us as to what that might mean, John.
Well, Bob, we certainly don't hope it. The computers may be giving a readout that his car is running too rich. The engine management system controls the fuel flow, and they could be getting signs back to the computer bank saying to ease off, Nige, ease off. You got a good lead, and save the fuel. It would be just disastrous for him to run out now.
Well, of course, it would be disastrous. These normally aspirated engines don't soak up the fuel like the old turbo engines did, but even so, this is a very, as John would say, fuel-rich circuit, and they do use a lot of fuel here on a day like today, especially. So we see Nelson Piquet in the V8. The V8, of course, would expect to use less fuel than the V10 engine.
Riccardo Patrese set the fast lap of the race back on 48 as you watch Nelson Piquet at 122.672. We may not see a faster one as all the drivers begin to concern themselves with fuel. V10 engines, the Renaults in the cars of Nigel Mansell and Riccardo Patrese running 1.3. They're going to use more fuel in all likelihood than the V8 in a car like Nelson Piquet's. Now he is lapping at about 123, Nigel at about 126. So the final word on this race has not yet been said.
But Piquet is still 47-odd seconds behind Nigel Mansell, and as you say, there's only 12 laps to go.
Nigel Mansell came across that time at 124.4, so he's aware of the fact, I think, that Nelson Piquet, at this point, is burning up the racetrack.
Modern are also turning in the very respectable lap there, 1:23.8. If he could do a few more of those, he'd be right up at the front there. He's in 4th position at the moment. 5th and 6th are held by the 2 Jordan cars, the 7-up Jordans, and of course that'll be great for their pre-qualifying hopes.
As we work lap 59 with 10 to go, let's recap the field. It is Mansell, followed by Piquet, 48 seconds and change now behind Mansell. 3rd is Ricardo Patrese, the only other car on the lead lap after having passed his teammate. Then Stefano Modena, Andrea De Cesaris, Bertrand Gachot, Pierluigi Martini, Eric Comas, Emanuele Pirro still in the hunt. I thought both Stellaris were out, but he is still out there circulating 2 laps down, followed by Satoru Nakajima and Maurizio Gugelmin.
Down to turn 10 for Nelson Piquet. There we see Gugelmin just going out of the picture in the Leighton House.
Oh, that's one of the Jordans up there.
Oh, is it? Sorry.
Another green car.
Through this dauntingly fast. When you stand there in real live flesh and watch those cars go through there, I mean, that really does make the hairs on the back of your head stand up. It is very, very fast through there.
And we saw Eric Comas have quite a moment going through there in qualifying yesterday afternoon. Absolutely sideways under the bridge, just snapped it back around, never lifted his foot, rocketed off down the fastest part of the racetrack.
That was what you could call, if it was in skating, that would have been a snap turn. He'd have got a 9.9 for that one. I tell you, it was pretty hair-raising to watch.
There is your leader, the red number 5 of Nigel Mansell. You see those Molson beer billboards in the background. Such are the marketing wars in Formula One. Molson's got into a big litigation with another Canadian brewer over the rights to this race a few years ago. In fact, the race wasn't held in 1987, I believe, as a result of that fight. Now Molson won the rights, spent all that money, paid all those lawyers, and who's running 1-3 in the race? That other brewery, Labatt's, sponsoring the Williams team.
Such is life, as you say, or such is the racing. Into the turn 1 complex. Still using that curb. Nigel really liked to use that inside curb. I noticed Ricardo Patrese does not use it as much. It's not harmful to the car in any way to run the wheel up on the inside like that. It's very, very unloaded, those wheels. And it sometimes helps to pull the car around if you've got just a little bit of understeer. Helps to make it rotate, as they say at the Skip Barber driving school.
60 laps of 69 complete. Nigel Mansell lapped at 1:25.5 the last time around. Still comfortably out front. Nelson Piquet has closed it up to 48.4 seconds behind Nigel Mansell. Patrese still right there on the lead lap and going as fast as he can, but mindful of the fuel situation in his V10.
Well, flag out back there. Nelson Piquet, we're now being told we somehow missed it up here. At one stage did pit, which might explain why he's quite so far down and why he's going so fast now.
47.6 seconds now the gap as Nelson Piquet right there in that yellow and green Benetton closes up inexorably on Nigel Mansell. We have official word now. Stefan Johansson suffered engine failure in his footwork Porsche.
The Porsche engine has not been a roaring success this year to date. There's no doubt about it. Now, of course, if they had sticking throttle, that's the sort of thing that can easily blow an engine, because if it keeps on sticking wide open every time you want to shift gears and you have to keep pushing the clutch in to stop yourself running into things, that's not very good for the engine. There's that yellow flag out again, or the oil flag, yellow and red stripe flag.
It is very, very hot. The racetrack might indeed be getting slick after all of these race cars have made their way through and all of the engine detonations we've seen today. But things are wrapping up very shortly. 8 laps to go. You're watching live the Grand Prix of Canada. Lacey and Alain Prost suffering mechanical problems. What a day for Williams. After taking 1-2 in this race 2 years ago in the rain, they now are in position to go 1-3. And Nigel Mansell right there, an opportunity to pick up his 17th career Formula One victory, which would vault him up into second place in points, from a tie for 4th up into 2nd, followed by his teammate Ricardo Patrese. See the Tyrrell's running nose to tail there.
That's the car of Stefano Modena, just passing his teammate Satoru Nakajima, who we saw slap the ball earlier on, coming to a pit stop, change the tyres, obviously gone out, but he's been running at a very much reduced pace ever since, and in fact he's 3 laps behind. Stefano Modena looking set at this stage for a 4th place finish, which would give him 6 points in the World Championship, would jump him up, oh golly, to equal 4th with a number of people.
Remember, in the World Championship this year, all 16 races will count. So, and Ayrton Senna could not drop his DNF today from his final standings. Every point gained against the overall leader, Senna, the runaway leader in the World Championship, are points that will stick.
And every point lost is lost forever. How true.
Current standings, working lap number 64, Mansell by some 47 seconds over Nelson Piquet, no longer making inroads as you watch. I think that's Andrea de Cesaris making his way around. Mansell, Piquet, Patrese, Stefano Modena, 1 lap down. Andrea de Cesaris right there, running in 5th spot. He'll pick up some points. It's been a while for Andrea. Bertrand Gachot, his teammate, runs in the 6th position. First points for the Jordan team this year. Eddie Jordan will be jumping up and down. In 7th position, Pierluigi Martini, also a lap down. 2 laps down, Eric Comas in 8th, followed by Emanuele Pirro, 2 laps down in 9th. 3 laps down, Satoru Nakajima in the Tyrrell, and Maurizio Gugelmin in the Leighton House car.
There we see the Jesuit. 7-up Jordan coming to the hairpin into the fast pit. These cars, just right out of the box, went very well.
Designed by Gary Anderson for Eddie Jordan, very famous and very successful campaigner in the Formula 3000 series, which is the stepping stone to Formula 1 in European racing. There is Nigel Mansell. But the Jordan cars, I was about to say, David, in only their 5th race are in position to score points. That's quite an achievement.
Well, absolutely. And it's just 10 years ago, in a couple of weeks' time, that young Edward Jordan and myself drove a BMW M1 in the Le Mans 24-hour race together.
Le Mans coming your way in about 2 weeks here on ESPN. David and I hope to be there to tell you all that we can about sports cars and what, to my mind, I have to say, is the greatest race in the world, the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Nigel Mansell closing up on Riccardo Patrese there again. I would imagine that if they do finally get this down to an absolute dead cert, i.e. the last lap, that the team there, we see a very disappointed Ayrton Senna, still holds a huge lead in the World Championship. Still got 40 points. And the next greatest runner, assuming it's Nigel Mansell, will end up with 16. So not in any real danger as yet.
Reduce the gap from 31 to 24. 39, that is, to 24. Pretty sizable jump.
But of course, it's one of those things, racing being all it needs is another weekend like this. And suddenly, the whole thing looks rather different. I'm sure if we get down to the last lap and they're absolutely sure as a team that they are going to come 1st and 3rd, so they will let Nigel go through and take the checkered flag.
Incorrect on mathematics. 29 points over Frost coming in to 24 over Mansell going out. We have a new fast lap from old Nige, 122.385. Maurizio Gugelmin brings in the Leighton House car.
It's disappointing. There's just so few laps to go.
What a heartbreak for them. They started the year with a bizarre case of vandalism. Someone got to these cars in the garages in Phoenix, Arizona, cut some brake lines. It's popularly thought at that time to have been a disgruntled former member of the team. Disgruntled's about the word, I guess, for poor Maurizio Gugelmin. Which leaves us with 10 cars of the 26 that started, still circulating. Here comes Andrea de Cesaris. There's that Gachot again. They've done it to me again. Mansell, Piquet, Patrese, Modena, de Cesaris, Gachot, Martini, Comas, Pirro, and Nakajima.
Gugelmin now out of the field, so that's only 10 cars running. Looks like Gachot is going to try and take not a position back from Piquet, but at least get around him to help himself get back onto that lap.
These cars are now about to turn for the hairpin, the farthest point on the circuit from the start-finish line, which Nigel Mansell has just crossed to complete lap number 66. 3 laps remaining. You're watching live the Grand Prix of Canada. The grandstand still packed, a huge crowd on hand. You get to this island circuit by crossing one of 2 walkover bridges, and they have been packed. Look at that grandstand in the background.
A lot of people here, and of course, now see more oil down. This is a different spot. We've seen the oil flag there before. It may be just for the debris. You can see on that long shot how the rolled up rubber from all these tires has collected on the track to get offline and get into that stuff, what they call the marbles. It is slippery.
Piquet's head bobbed down. I think he took a quick look at his gas gauges. Now, there's Nigel. Is he
gone
going
back
under?
in front?
These two teammates, they will say all the proper things about how hard they're fighting amongst themselves for the good of the team and everything, but there is the rumor going around. There is the feeling that perhaps they are not great buddies. And the reason for that simply is finances. Nigel Mansell making a rumored $9 or $10 million this year. Ricardo Patrese rumored to make something on the order of $1 to $2 million, and he is not happy about that financial discrepancy. 2 laps remaining.
Especially as he is out-qualified and, of course, beaten Nigel on 2 previous occasions this year. He just feels that the discrepancy is just a little bit wider than it might be. I'm not even sure that he gets 1.1 or 2 million. I think he gets more like 800,000. Nigel, of course, needs that dough now. Bought himself an incredibly expensive house in Florida and will be spending more time here in the United States. And I think in the back of his little mind, he can see that big oval up the road glinting at him too. I think he'd like to have a go at that before he gives up racing altogether.
There is Stefano Modena, one of 2 tunnels. Tough break for him in Monte Carlo after running for about 2/3 of the race in 2nd position and pressing Ayrton Senna at several points on the racetrack. I believe he is. This is a battle for position. Yeah, this is for 3rd place.
It is too.
Takes
Obviously,
it easily.
Patrese has got some sort of problem developed. The most unreliable part of the Williams at the moment, of course, the Williams Renault, is the semi-automatic gearbox. But there's no doubt about it. When they're right, they are absolutely tremendous. And I would think that within 2 or 3 years, pretty well every car out there will have some sort of a semi-automatic gearbox. You can let Ferrari and Williams get all the bugs out, do all the testing, and then everybody will have it. Because it does make a big difference.
Nigel Mansell beginning the last lap of the race. The transverse gearbox, these are transverse semi-automatic gearboxes, distinguished from the longitudinal gearbox on the Ferrari. Each works. Nigel, don't wave to the crowd too soon there, buddy.
It's not over till it's over. Oh, my God.
The longitudinal box carries much of its mass and weight, unhappily, behind the rear axles of the car. The transverse box, such as the one on the Williams, is in front of the rear wheels, a great help to the designer in weight and balance on these incredibly delicate race cars. But they do have their problems, as David pointed out. They shift fractionally faster than a manually shift, and you can also keep your hands on the steering wheel as you do your shifting.
I think that Gerhard Berger still misses the Ferrari automatic gearbox going into his 2nd season with the Honda McLaren. I think he still misses that semi-automatic gearbox. He's just having to go back to taking the hand off the wheel to shift. He's found to be quite a chore this year, and I know it must be a big help.
As we watch, Stefano Modena took his place behind Nelson Piquet. Oh, Nigel Mansell's very slow.
He's not only slow, he's stopped.
He has stopped. Nigel Mansell is beating on the car. Could this be? Oh, my. He has 57 seconds. We will watch for the Benetton of Nelson Piquet. But at the rate Nigel Mansell is going, there is no question that he is going to be beaten on the 69th and final lap of this race after leading the first 68.
That fuel sign obviously then was meant in all seriousness. Here we see the car streaming down that back straight. Expect to see Nelson Piquet any minute.
There's Piquet. I wonder if he knows. From 2nd place, he has snatched victory, and time will tell the reason why.
Well, you've got to be skillful in any form of racing endeavor to win, but you've also got to have a large slice of luck.
How about the new 2nd place car? And right about now, Nelson Piquet will see Nigel Mansell there by the side of the road, and by now he certainly knows that he is leading this race. 1 more corner. Well, make it 2. We'll give him a right and a left-hand turn, and Nelson Piquet will pick up the victory. I can't believe it.
I don't think they can either, too, and I'm sure the Williams team absolutely can't believe it.
Oh, they must be in shock. The checkered flag is out, and it waves for Nelson Piquet. Picking up
his... You see Mike Tranifus of Ford with the flat hat on there. He is the worldwide director of Ford Racing, a German that's come to live in Detroit, and he'll be absolutely ecstatic over that.
Victory number 23. There you see Ricardo Patrese now running in 3rd position as he passes the stranded car of his teammate.
God, I hope they didn't try to be clever and run him about 4 liters less fuel to save themselves 4 7 to 28, 2.8 pounds. But it's the sort of thing these Formula One guys do.
Well, it appears that one Williams will make it to the finish line. Yes, he is across. safely. We'll see if he can make his last lap. Ricardo Petrese. Well, I mean, he did make a pit stop, so he might have been able to save just enough fuel to get around if he had the same amount. Oh, your heart has to go out to this guy, Nigel Mansell, who drove so well, but that 17th career win will not happen today. Nevertheless, the Williams cars have shown what they're capable of, and that should make things very interesting in Mexico City in 2 weeks. We'll be right back. The time has nearly come to bid au revoir to beautiful Montreal, to the Olympic Park, to the mighty St. Lawrence River, and in the background, Olympic Stadium, home of the Montreal Expos. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of Canada has been brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. By Ektar Film from Kodak. For advanced photographers, the genius is in the details. And by Smooth Bush Beer and easy drinking Bush Light. After a most extraordinary finish, there is Nigel Mansell, who led 68 laps of this race before running out of fuel, it would appear, on the 69th. Let's get down to John Bizignano.
Well, I had electrical problems, and I think it was either a battery or some wiring problem, and unfortunately I didn't finish the race. But I think the Williams did very well today, and they deserve a victory today. Unfortunately, they lost in the last minute for some small thing, but that's motor racing, and that's how it is. Until the checker flag, you never know.
But Ayrton, it seems like the team was not as competitive all weekend long, that you were really struggling this weekend. Okay, being where you were on the grid is not really struggling, but you didn't have the command that you've had in the other races.
I think having won 4 races, being on pole 4 times, it's difficult for people to believe when you say we are not there. It's been tough to win here and there and so on. And people from outside don't believe that we have difficulties and we are not as high level as we should be. And this weekend, not the race result, but the weekend, I think, shows and demonstrates that what I've been saying was correct, that we are not there as Williams are. We had better reliability for sure so far, but in terms of performance we were not there, and I think this will be used, this result in the weekend will be used as a motivating factor for everybody, particularly at Honda, to improve the engine. We must improve the engine is not there in performance, and the chassis as well. We need to make some step forwards, and I think this result was good. It was not bad. It was at the right time early in the season, giving time for everybody in the team to commit more than ever to this championship. I am fully committed with the team, and as far as myself is concerned, I will do my very best to work with them and to motivate everybody to go forward and continue for another championship fight.
Thank you very much, Ayrton. Even more committed after not doing quite as well.
For the first time this year, Ayrton Senna, our runaway points leader, does not finish. Your winner, the surprise victory, goes to Nelson Piquet over Stefano Modena, Ricardo Petrese. With the Williams team comes home 3rd. Andrea De Cesaris 4th. His teammate Bertrand Gachot 5th. Nigel Mansell will be classified 6th, picking up 1 point, 1 lap down, followed by Martini, Comas, Pirro, and Nakajima. We'll be right back. You're watching a Canadian television replay of the victory for Nelson Piquet. There you see Stefano Modena's Tyrrell come through. A second place finish. I still can't get this order in my head. Nigel Mansell led 68 laps, ran out of fuel, it would appear, on the last lap. Nelson Piquet comes through for the victory, followed by Stefano Modena on the left there on the podium, and on the right, Ricardo Petrese, the pole sitter.
Shaking his head, he can't believe it either. I mean, they just had this race so locked up all the time, and half a lap to go, he drops out.
As a result of that finish, here are the drivers' points. Ayrton Senna retains 40. Nelson Piquet leaps into 2nd place ahead of Alain Prost with 16. Prost did not finish. He has 11. In 4th, Gerhard Berger, who also did not finish, for McLaren with 10. Ricardo Petrese now has 10 to tie. Stefano Modena has 9. And Nigel Mansell picks up 1 very cold point. for 7th. He is 6th on the points table right now. Constructors' points are as you see them. John Bizignano is standing by now in the pit lane. John?
We are down in the constructor's pit who thought was going to win this race. Nigel Mansell. Bob, the first suspicion was for fuel stopping the car, but actually the gearbox. Not one gear did Nigel Mansell have to finish that last lap. He would have trundled around in first gear, and he actually had enough time to win the race even in first gear. That runs up to a good 45 miles an hour. There was not one gear left in that new automatic gearbox.
Well, I guess that is cold comfort, certainly, but certainly better than the embarrassment of running out of gas, David.
Well, I guess so, but I mean, yes, as you say, it is cold comfort, because all day today and all day tomorrow, people are going to say to him, well, Nige, that's racing, but it's just not the same when it's you.
One more look at our official results. Piquet, Modena, Patrese, De Cesaris, and Gasho lead the top 5. We'll be right back to say so long from Montreal. A huge crowd on the Ile de Notre Dame starts to file out after a most eventful 5th round of the Formula One World Championship. We have had fire, we have had crashes, we have had lead changes, we've had our 3rd different leader of the year, but nothing will surpass what we saw on the last lap. Nigel Mansell took the lead at the green light from his teammate Riccardo Patrese, led the race handily, got down to, well, within 4 or 5 corners of the checkered flag when his gearbox let go, David.
Well, and also just think how Riccardo Patrese, we saw him on the rostrum there shaking his head. Of course, he remembers that just about 15 laps, 20 laps before that, he had come into the pits with a flat rear tire, having been an absolute solid 2nd. So just think where Riccardo Patrese knows he would have finished his race if his teammate had pooped out like he did on the last lap anyway. So, again, as they say, that's racing, but it's tough to take when it happens to you on that. The Williams showing today, again, as they showed at Monte Carlo, with a great performance by Patrese before he went off on Modena's oil, with a tremendous 2nd place by Nigel, a strong 2nd place in Brazil by Riccardo Patrese. Nigel had been going very strongly there. So these cars obviously are going to be a major threat to the McLaren Honda. Ayrton Senna getting in a good dig there at the team and Honda and everybody else to make sure that they're on their toes just like he's on his for the rest of the year. And it is a big commitment, and there's no doubt about it. And he, of course, nobody could be more committed than Senna.
We'll take another look at those constructors' points. The McLaren Honda team with 50 to 19 for Benetton Ford. Williams Renault with 17. Ferrari with 16. Tyrrell Honda with 11. And we have truly 4, perhaps 5 really competitive teams here now in Formula One.
And there's no doubt that we're going to get more. You know, I think that the Jordan team will come on very, very strongly as they pick up better and better engines from Ford. When Ford go through onto the V12, they'll get the stage 6 V8 engines, so they're going to be very, very competitive. And I feel sure that Dallara with the Judd V10 is going to start coming into the picture more and more. They were running at one stage, J.J. Leto was running in 4th spot. If he could have just finished the race, he'd have finished 2nd.
Well, certainly there will be more than just Formula One fans' eyes on Mexico, because it would appear that the world governing body wants to go oval racing. I think we'll have some IndyCar drivers looking in. We asked Formula One drivers their thoughts on the series.
Yes, I have to say I was in Indianapolis last week to watch the 500 for the first time, and I was most impressed, really. For me, it's the best race in the world, no question about it, and I would really like to do it, actually. I would really like to do that type of racing. I think for me, it's what I will try to do for the future, in fact.
Well, if you have it's a pace car and yellow flag, I don't think I will. Because make a big show, but technically the race is finished. You know, if you spend your tires, your fuel, and do the best you can, then get advance, and after become a yellow flag and everybody close back again, I think it's not a real race. That is a big show for the public, but it's not a technical race.
I would be interested to race maybe 1 year or 2 years in America, and but overall, the overalls, I'm not really big fan of the overalls, you know? So I don't know. I can't answer more than that. You know, it's just want to wait and see.
Well, it's certainly going to be a continuing story, both the potential worldwide oval series, possibly including the Indy 500, and the use of 3.5-liter normally aspirated engines. But back to matters at hand, the Jordan team has come through with their first points in just their 5th Grand Prix race, and John Bizignano is standing by in the pit lane now with the team owner and manager himself, Eddie Jordan.
Eddie Jordan. You have tears in your eyes. I know it's from total elation. What about a round of applause here for Mr. Jordan, crowd? Now, quiet. Okay. Eddie, to bring 2 cars in your 5th Grand Prix into the points out of pre-qualifying, we have referred to you as the future Ron Dennis. How do you do these things? People have been trying to do this for years. You walk into the sport and you make it happen.
Well, I think we've gained a bit of good luck. We earned our good luck here today. We had a little problem with a tire change early on in the race, and we kept working at it, and Andrea finished 4th, Bertram finished 5th. The team effort, everything that I've believed in and tried to formulate over years. This is the realization of those dreams now. And it makes all the previous years worthwhile.
You said to me at the beginning of the season we wanted to qualify in the top 10 and finish in the next 6. You've done that. Your next goal, Mr. Jordan?
I've got to consolidate, of course. We're a young team. We're learning all the time. We've got wonderful sponsors. We've got this lovely green image for Ireland, for 7-Up, for BP, for Fuji. And, you know, they've believed in me, and especially the Ford people who gave me the engine in the first place. Without these people, I wouldn't be here. But it is a great day. It's wonderful to be in Canada. I shall always remember it for the rest of my life.
I think this will become your favorite country. Congratulations, Eddie.
Adopted son.
It could be St. Patrick's Day here in Canada as Eddie Jordan brings the green of Ireland through to victory, and not victory, but through to his first points. And a victory certainly cannot be far away for Jordan Racing.